Hi there, everybody. Welcome along. This is White and Jordan on the box. And what a show we have for you ahead of the biggest weekend of English football in half a century. So whatever happens on Sunday in the final of the Euros, has Gareth Southgate already cemented his legacy as an England managerial legend? We are going to get into that very shortly. With me today, a man who cannot believe that he's going to witness history in the making this Sunday, and he is Simon Jordan. Simon, how are you, my friend? A month ago, would you have said that England would be where they've got to?
I am very well, just peachy, thank you. But yes, I would have done, absolutely. No, I didn't think England would have got to the final. I sort of projected that they would do well in the tournament, and as the tournament went on, about a week, 10 days ago, as you will recall,
yes,
I forecast an England-Italy final. So the Mystic Meg part of me comes to the fore.
You did actually, to be fair. Yeah, England-Italy, and England-Italy it is. With Simon and myself, a guy who knows what it's actually like to pull on the England jersey. Our wingman, Trevor Sinclair, is here. How are you feeling, Mr. Sinclair, ahead of this game?
Excited, Jim. Great to be here. I think the whole tournament's been brilliant. You know, looked at the performances from England. I feel we're one of the best teams. We've managed to get to the final. And why not? Can we go and win it?
And are they going to win it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think they've got the better players, better squad, great manager, and I think it's all there.
Trevor, a lot to get through with Simon and myself. Also with us on the box, a living legend, the only man to score a hat-trick in a World Cup final. His goals helped set the standard for English football ever since then. And that man is Sir Geoff Hurst. And you can hear what he thinks of England's chances later on in the show. And with us, as always, our home team, literally in their own homes. And they are the squad. Great to have you along with us for the show today. In actual fact, Laurel, no doubt you're very excited about the events at Wembley on Sunday. How are the nerves holding up?
I'm buzzing, but I don't know whether I've got like nervous excitement or whatever it is, but quietly confident, buzzing, and just can't wait. Bring it on.
Bring it on, says Laurel. OK, bring it on indeed. Folks, we'll hear more from you lot later on in the show. OK, let's get on with things. And while it's a rest day before Sunday's Euro final, it's no rest for the wicked here. Whatever the result on Sunday, here's a question. Has Gareth Southgate already cemented his legacy as an England managerial legend? Simon, what do you think in that one?
I think that's undeniable, because if no other manager since 1966 has taken a team to the final of a major tournament, then his legacy is there for people to see. Now, it depends what legacy you want it to be. Do you want it to be a legacy of a manager that turned up in a final, or do you want it to be the legacy of a manager that wins this final? So I think it's undeniable that you have to give Gareth Southgate that particular moniker, that he has created a legacy that supersedes anything anyone's done for the last 55 years.
You didn't always think like that.
No. Well,
how
can
there
you?
was a stage you were not in any mood to give him any credit whatsoever.
I mean, if you look at the backdrop of appointing a manager for a national side, you would like to think it's an elite manager. Now, Gareth has graduated, shall we say, from the England setup, which makes him an easy person to go to in terms of the FA, with no challenge or issues about the manager's outlook or disposition or history or so on and so forth. So no, I wasn't in that camp that he was a shoo-in for that job, and I was resistant to it. Over the passage of time, I think he's had great fortune on his side, but fortune favours the brave.
Yeah, I mean, you said he was lucky.
No, I say he's fortuitous. And I think, yes, I do think he's lucky. I think he's been born with a four-leaf clover internationally, because you've had a tournament where you've drawn sides that ultimately in the World Cup that facilitated an opportunity, and the same thing has happened here. But out of that has come a guy that's morphed now into the real deal as an international manager, the real McCoy of a 21st century communicator and manager of young players in an international framework. So credit where credit's due.
Trevor, Simon is saying he's morphed from a lucky guy, a fortunate guy, into close to a managerial legend.
Harsh. Very harsh. I mean, when he went in at the under-21s, he was working with some of the players that have ended up graduating to the first team. I think media-wise, he's always spoke really well in the media. I think from a social point of view, he's always been on top of what's going on in the country, which affects the players and which affects our sport. So I think from a media point of view, he's always been very good. And some of the things that he's brought into place with the England squad since he's gone into the senior side, with the media, the relationship with the media, I think he's been exceptional how he's welcomed the media. They've got the Lions Den, which they do interviews day to day with the squad. I think the cliques within the squad, you know, I was in the squad in 2002 where there was 5 or 6 Manchester United players that would sit on a table, and Liverpool and so on. And he was part of the in-betweeners, which I was. I was at West Ham, he was at Aston Villa. And that's not right. That's not great for the spirit of the squad. He's made it a whole unit. We're all the squad together. He's changed that. And so some of the things that we did as players in the England squad, he's looked at his experiences, changed it for the better. And you look at the spirit the boys have got now, and it's undeniable. He's been absolutely massively impressive. I think he's done superb.
I want to hear from the squad on this one. Emily, hi to you. What are your thoughts on Gareth? Indeed, should Gareth become Sir Gareth Southgate?
Yeah, definitely. Give him a knighthood. I think he deserves it. We've had the toughest year ever. Everyone's had the toughest year, and he's brought the country together. And we're all buzzing. Like, what more could you want? He deserves it for sure.
So you say yes, but Nick, you ain't that sure, are you?
No, I don't think he should. At the end of the day, he's done his job, and he's done his job very well if he wins the Euros. And I'm sure he'll get a hefty bonus by the FA for that. If he wins the World Cup, I might change my tune, but all he's done is his job. He's done nothing outside of that for me to be given a knighthood.
Simon, he's doing his job and no more than that, says Nick. Do you think he should be knighted?
I'm more in the Nick camp than I am in the Emily camp.
Why does that surprise us, Trev?
By judging by the standards of how we hand out gongs like confetti, then you probably can make a case for him being given a knighthood. But there is an element of he wasn't brought in to fail, he was brought in to be successful. So being successful is the byproduct of being given the job. And then we move into the territory of what it means to the nation and the unique times we're in. So by the standards we set now, yes. By rational, reasonable, unsentimental standards, no, I don't think so. No, I think I'm on with Nick.
Well, what about the work that they've done with the NHS in giving the NHS money from their fees that they get paid for England?
Yeah.
And by all accounts, it's been rumoured they're going to give a hefty fee to the NHS. The work that Raheem Sterling's done for taking the knee. The work that Rashford has done.
That's lovely, Trevor, but what's that got to do with the price of cheese about
This is
Gareth
above and
Southgate?
beyond being a footballer. I think these players, these young players, reflect the manager.
And I agree with that entirely, and they probably reflected him when they were in Reykjavik running around behaved badly as well. You could make that argument. But by the same token, there is an argument that suggests that playing for your country, as footballers that get paid an average £75,000 a week, you shouldn't need to be paid to play for your country. So it is a great gesture. No one disputes that. We've discussed this earlier on a different platform about the fact that the £9.6 million of bonuses, £9.6 million of bonuses for playing for your country should be donated to a worthwhile cause. But that's got nothing to do with the question about whether Gareth Southgate should be knighted.
Well, it has, in my opinion, because I think they're a reflection of the manager. I think
they are.
He's picked a squad. You know, when he first came in, he dropped certain players, big players, because they weren't doing and acting off the field as he wanted. So he's picked a squad that can behave, and he's dropped players who have misbehaved and said, listen, you're going to stay there. You're not going to be back in this squad until you can prove to me.
Do you know what that's called, Trevor? That's called management.
Professionalism, yeah.
That's called management.
No, but Simon, if they win, if England beat Italy, what more could Southgate have done?
So what are you suggesting?
He's done everything and more than what he was asked to do.
He gets a knighthood, right? So what happens if he wins the World Cup? What does he do? Get the keys of England? What does he do? Gets ascent to the throne. Let's get things into context.
Where are the keys of England?
Oh, God only knows. Not
55 years, Simon. Come on, give him some credit. The first final we've been to. If we can get over the line and win this final.
He is a fabulous product of his time. He has the zeitgeist for how to deal with young footballers because he's built a relationship with them during the time that he was a 21s manager. As I've said before, an analogy, if you put a lawyer in charge of a business, you'll end up in court. If you put the under-21 manager in charge of the national side, it's a shoo-in, you'll get young players coming through.
Not only that, though, I don't think it was done by design. He wasn't earmarked to go...
It was.
earmarked to take the senior team.
No.
He wanted to go in there. He'd just come up from Middlesbrough.
It's because they appointed Sam Allardyce. That might have evaded you,
So although it wasn't by design, I think this could be the new blueprint for finding the next England manager.
Hire a manager, then fire him after one game.
No, it's taking them through the youth system and knowing them and getting to know them
guys,
as a personality.
Whether or not it becomes Sir Gareth, it all depends on whether or not England win. Now, none of us has a crystal ball, but that didn't stop our talkSPORT pundits making their predictions. Have a look at this.
I know Italy have been superb in this tournament. There's a few cracks in Italy's defence, and hopefully England can get the best of that. So I'm definitely going to go with England to win the Euros, which will be great for the country.
I think England will win the final. I think it'll be difficult having gone to extra time the other night, but with home support, hopefully at least 60,000, hopefully 90,000. I think the fans will give them the extra energy they need.
I think England will win the final. I think it'll be an incredibly difficult game. I think you're going to see a frenzy and a fanaticism inside the stadium that will spur the team on and carry them across the line. And I also think England are an incredibly difficult team to play against.
Gareth will be canny tactically, so will the Italians. We've been good at penalties recently, so we should be upbeat, and I think there would be a kind of beautiful symmetry to that if we could win it on penalties.
I think it'll be a very tightly contested affair. I think it'll be very tense. But of course, as I'm in London and I've got to leave this building and go out and mix with many people who will know me in the streets, England will win.
My heart says England, so always listen to my heart. So England.
It's virtually impossible to call two great sides. You've got to say England, though. I just think the passion of Wembley Stadium is going to be enough to get them over the line.
A few diplomatic answers in there, not least the one from me. Great news for national clubs after Boris Johnson announced that COVID certificates would not be needed to enter stadiums next season. But the Premier League is still exploring the use of certification even after lockdown eases. But are they sensible to be treading here with some degree of caution? What's your take on that, Simon?
Look, I'm not in favour of a society that is two-tiered, that ultimately puts the onus on people to do things that possibly they don't want to do and may have reasons for not doing. But we also live in a society where you have collective responsibility. As a society, we take the benefits of having an NHS, which has collective benefits. So people that have taken vaccines and have put themselves in a position to protect not only themselves and society, there's a balance to be had. Now, football is I don't want it to be used as a poster boy to continue the fear culture that we have in this country about this disease, but if it's going to prevent and protect the financial meltdown that they've had because of the lack of attendances is going to be facilitatory to that, then there's a balance to be struck. And I am in a mindset where in a collective responsibility society that perhaps there is some exclusions, and if people don't want to participate in a collective society, then maybe they have to take the flip side of not being able to participate in certain things.
But will football fans here, Simon, not feel we're being targeted here? Why just us?
Well, this is the thing, because if it's not something that's going to be universally deployed across all sports, then you start to find yourself in a territory of saying, right, well, on one hand, we've got the football world saying, why are we the only sports business that can't drink in front of the stadium? And why we're now being used as the most responsible sport to be able to only allow people in that have been vaccinated or have had, tests that have been passed recently. Look, it's a difficult one because it's preparation that we want to see. We want to see people to be prepared, but it's also perpetuating something that we don't want.
Where do you stand there, Trev?
I think it's a good thing. I think they want to safeguard the football so it can continue. I think if you've got, I don't know how many million per weekend that go into stadiums, but if you've got millions of fans going into stadiums and
400,000 fans a week going into the Premier League.
So per month, it's millions. I think if you've got millions of fans going into stadiums, you've got to make sure you can safeguard the continuation of football. And I think they're just looking after their own industry. They understand what the government's put in place, but they feel with the 18 months that they've had where they've had to bend over backwards, they've lost an amazing amount of money in the sport. I think they want to safeguard the continuation of that. And I think it's right that they do that.
Challenge is this is only about the Premier League. There are 72 other clubs with far many more fans going into stadiums that may not be running this scheme. So there smacks of an element of elitism about it at the same time.
So will the EFL jump on board? Because I think it'd be irresponsible if they didn't.
If there is a cost implication behind it.
Well, there's not, because the test is free.
Hold on. Are they?
Yeah,
Are the
tests are free if you go to
lateral flow
NHS,
tests?
yeah.
Okay, fine.
Well, I mean, look at what they've done at the Euros. We had to. I went to the semi-final against Denmark the other night. Had to show proof of a lateral test, a negative test that day, and every other fan was the same.
I think it's also,
now, it's not too much to ask.
I think it's also if you've been double jabbed, I don't think you have to do the lateral flow. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I just think, Simon, that people and football fans who couldn't wait to get back into stadia are prepared to go through any process really to get themselves back in, especially at a time like this.
Yeah. And I understand that, and I'm not raising a case for or against it. I just don't want the narrative to be, because there's a narrative out there saying that if you have 2 jabs and you don't wear a mask, then you're being irresponsible. Everyone's being responsible if they have a jab because they're part of a collective society. And I don't want sport to be leveraged as a poster boy for everything else that's going to be enforced in our society. Because if you're able to go into a boozer and you're able to go into a nightclub and you don't have to show a COVID passport, then why shouldn't you be able to go into a sports ground?
I'm just smiling at you saying nightclub.
A nightclub, yeah. Those days have gone, Mr. Jordan.
I know.
We entered
Disappeared
the
into the ether.
and we sure were flung out a few. But the fact of the matter is, Simon, we've also said football along the way, drop a contingency plan. Well, they're doing that. I mean, we cannot argue with that. To be fair here, it's a contingency and it has to be drawn up.
Yes. If the contingency... Listen, if football is looking at this for a prism of saying, we have had a dreadful time economically through the loss of fans, and one of the ways, if the government is going to be absurd and start to suggest in November there's another lockdown if you don't have a booster, we need to be protecting ourselves to look as if we are above board and doing everything we can. If this is an exercise in that, to protect the economics of it and to make sure that people can go into football stadiums, then okay. But if it's something more sinister that is continuing the regime of a culture inside this country where we're changing the way we think and the way that we live, then I'm a little bit concerned by that.
Sure, there's nothing sinister about it, Trevor.
I don't think so.
Simon's saying sinister. There's nothing sinister in it.
I don't think so. I don't think so. And in
What's
a way,
sinister in it?
in a way,
the way we live at the moment.
In a way, I think
Something
it's
very
football
sinister.
possibly thinking maybe it's not on the same page as the government with losing all restrictions. So maybe they feel that the government has done this for the country and they don't feel ready and they don't feel prepared to go into that situation. So they'd rather safeguard what they've got, safeguard the health of the fans going into the stadiums and hopefully safeguard their economics.
All right, guys, let's see what the fans make of these certificates and we'll head over to the squad. Adam, hi to you. What about certificates? A good idea? Or do you think this is a lot more sinister than meets the eye?
I don't think there's anything sinister at all about COVID certificates. I think anything that we can do to ensure that the safe going back to stadiums for fans. I think with the last 18 months we've all been watching behind closed doors football, and it isn't football at all, is it? It's been awful. And we've all watched the scenes from the last couple of weeks with fans back in the stadium, and it's football again. It's so much better. Yeah. I think if COVID certificates can facilitate that coming back, I'm more than happy to do so. And I think there's also the added benefit that I know I won't end up sat next to anyone that's an anti-vaxxer.
Yeah, it seems to make sense. Ali, do you agree? Ali's a season ticket holder at Leeds. What do you think, Ali?
I do agree. I do agree with that there certainly needs to be some sort of officiating to get guys back into the ground. My only concern would be how it's governed. Do they send a lateral flow to your house? Who do you show it to? And how is it all going to work? I think that's my main concern. Do I need to, every Thursday, drive out to a clinic that's 20 minutes from home just to get a negative test? I think my only concern will be the logistics behind the whole thing, really.
I think the logistic part, I think the clubs will enable that by having a few different centres around where the ground is. It's an email, you give your details, you have your test in front of a nurse or doctor. You get your test results sent back to you in an email, and then when you get to the ground, you show your ticket, you show your email, in you go. You're in a safe environment.
What you should be more concerned about is the nature of your medical condition being something that determines what you can do in life. Because it will go on. What's next? Yeah. You've got something else. I want you to prove to me that you haven't got something else.
We're
it's
just
about the provision of information.
Yeah, we're just talking about this one thing to get fans back in the stadiums and talking from a player's perspective. I mean, everyone's mentioned it already who spoke. The players have responded unbelievably to the fans being back in. So we need to keep them in there, Simon. That's what I'm saying.
We're talking about the nation being told it's got to prove its medical condition to go somewhere. And if it can leverage one of the biggest influencers in the country, which is sport, to suggest that your medical history is something that has to be used to get you in somewhere. Where does that lead to and what happens next? And we should be a bit concerned about that.
You're into conspiracy theories, aren't you?
Well, come on, Jim. We've just walked through a scenario in the last 18 months where we've seen things that beggar belief that we've had to endure. So it's not conspiracy theory. It's worried about precedents.
If you had to go to a game though, Simon, and you had to have proof that you a negative lateral test that day, if that was all that was being asked of you, would you do it?
Well, if you've double jabbed yourself, you've already elected.
I have double jabbed myself, but I had to show a lateral test negative result the other night.
If you've double jabbed yourself, if it's two-tiered, if it's about having the vaccine and then having tests, I'd be a little bit more resistant to consistently keep testing myself, because I want this regime of testing myself every 15 seconds to go away, because ultimately we're moving to a different dynamic. But if it's about having participated properly in a collective society, acknowledge your responsibility for others by being double jabbed, then I've already made that decision, so I wouldn't have a problem confirming it to some extent. But I'm worried that it leads to something else when you have to start proving your medical condition to do things in this world.
Okay. Sinister.
The
world knows, of course, it's 55 long years since England last lifted an international trophy. That was down to the World Cup squad of 1966. And earlier on, Simon and I caught up with one of the legends responsible for that very moment, half a century ago. Have a look at this. It's a warm welcome to Sir Geoff. And Sir Geoff, it is an enormous pleasure having you here. And may I say, you're looking very well.
Thank you, sweetheart. I'll buy you a drink later. I work out still. I do 50 minutes. I don't go to the gym and clean the equipment, so I'm staying away. For the last 15 months during the pandemic, I go and do 50 minutes walk up and down the hills. I come back and do 25 minutes of the Joe Wicks video, in-house video. And I've kept to that to routine. 6 days a week, Sunday off. It's the easiest day to have it off. Not I'm religious at all, but Sunday is an easier day with the family. It's a routine. I've kept to it. And I'm 2 or 3 pounds under the weight I was before, so I've kept to that level playing weight. So I'm okay.
You're more than okay. So, Geoff, it's great having you here with us. Tell me this, when the final whistle went at Wembley the other night and England progressed to the final, their first final in 55 long years, how did you feel?
Well, strangely enough, I'm as keyed up as every other fan. People think, one or two cynics say, you don't want England to win, you're still living on all that nonsense. And they're the cynics. I was happy and thrilled a bit. And also, very similar to the playing in the final, there was a sense of relief. That was my first emotion in '66, and a sense of relief that we've got through this game, this very difficult game against a good side. When you're that close to get to the final, it's a sense of relief, and we can relax a bit now. And I'm just as keyed up as all the other nutcases we've seen on TV and the 60,000 fans. And you can understand it in this climate. We're in the middle of a pandemic. People have been locked away, people all over the world. So we're seeing 60,000 fans at a stadium in a major game. It's an immense relief, and that crowd probably were making as much noise as three or four times that. And that was one of the real beautiful things. And the timing of the game during this pandemic is absolutely enormous.
Could you ever have imagined, Sir Geoff, that back in 1966 when you won the World Cup, it would be more than half a century when England would be in the final of another major tournament? Half a century.
Yeah, it's amazing. And not for a second that you'd have thought that. I think when we won the final, and prior to that, we hadn't played in many World Cups. We got beat by England, USA, 1-0,
right,
in 1950.
Yeah.
European clubs weren't playing in English clubs in Europe. And so the World Cup coming around and everybody winning it, people were thinking, we love this World Cup. It's been great. We're going to do it a few times. And we realised it's not that easy. We've been close a couple of times, in fairness. 96, the Euros, we were very close again with the penalty missed from Southgate. But no way would any of us in this country who was involved in the sport have thought that we'd be waiting 55 years before we got to another final.
It is amazing. I mean,
obviously in '68 you got to a semi-final in this particular tournament.
Yes, we did. Knocked out by Yugoslavia. Yeah. And we were the team to beat over that period. So that was quite a big shock. I think Alan Mullery got sent off.
That's right.
I didn't play in that game, I might tell you. Otherwise, had I played, we probably would have won. I came back for the third and fourth playoff against Russia. We beat them 2-0, and Bobby Charlton and myself got the goals. So people don't remember that we got knocked out.
That's right.
And really the favourites.
Yeah, I remember.
And a team of great magnitude over that period, those 6 or 7 years, the England team were the team to beat.
You're going to be at the final, of course you are, but you've watched every game. What do you make of what Southgate and his boys have done to get to this stage?
It's fantastic. There's no other word for it, to get to this final against some of the fantastic teams. I think there was a little criticism in the early rounds, which I never went along with, about shouldn't have two holding midfield players, Grealish should play. And what Gareth Southgate has done, he's actually shown how resilient he is, and compare with Alf Ramsey when he didn't listen too much to the press. And the pressure 1,000 times more on your back today than they were in our times. It's 1,000 times bigger. So it's magnificent they got that far, and they've gradually improved through in the tournament. But we have some really a great number of fantastic young players, and that was definitely, I was saying that before we came into this competition. And you need more than 11 players to win a tournament. More today, you need some very good players on the bench.
I wonder what Sir Alf would have made, though, Simon, of what goes on these days. I mean, the focus on these players is immense, isn't it? The pressure is immense. It was immense on you guys in '66, but surely, Geoff, nothing like this.
No, the media's 1,000 times bigger. The pressure is much bigger. The expectancy is far bigger. I said in '66 we hadn't been involved. All of a sudden we win it. Fantastic. Since that time, the pressure has been building and building. I watched the Euros in '96 when we got to the semis, and in the crowd you're aware of the expectation because of what happened in the past, and that's grown and built to where we are today. And again, in the pandemic, we haven't had anything like this. So the pressure, the build-up is much, much bigger than it will be even under normal circumstances. And that's why what Gareth's done. And you've got to pick Gareth, because in our time, Alf Ramsey was the first person you mentioned for the success. And Gareth Southgate, under his management and leadership, which quite clearly is shown in the behaviour and the attitude of the players, whether they're playing or whether they're not playing. What I liked about some of the celebrations, the subs are off the bench, jumping on the pile. And that illustrates to me, which is a very important issue, that there's teamwork and camaraderie, which is an important issue for a nation to win a major trophy.
A lot of England managers have come from an elite background. So Alf Ramsey was a successful club manager. You look at the Ron Greenwoods of the world, the Bobby Robsons of the world, and you look at Gareth Southgate's track record, it doesn't smack of the same level of success at club level as it does now, international level. I just wondered what you made of that.
I agree, it doesn't quite smack as the same as the previous managers. But what is important, the fact he worked lower down in the FA with those younger players. So he has had a very, very good look at those young players from a really young age, in seeing not only their ability, but importantly their attitude. And that is such an important thing. In my time, in Alf's time, if a player didn't have the right attitude, he wouldn't be in the squad, in the team. One or two players, I won't mention names, one or two players I felt during our time were going to be in the squad and possibly in the team, didn't make even the 22-man bus. And I think because Alf's strict discipline, and the player didn't want to be part of the group, they were omitted. And I think Gareth Southgate probably has done that way before, having seen these young kids grow up. Can you see kids' attitudes as a young age? Whatever they are, you see what they're like. So he's looking at players who he felt were going to be attitudinally and ability-wise good enough when they grew up to this level.
Geoff, of course, I mean, you boys won it in '66 at Wembley. I sat in my lounge in Glasgow with my dad watching you.
How do you feel about that? Was that you? Or?
Oh, we were all happy for you. I remember my father was delighted for you. I remember it vividly. I do remember it. I was, 9 years of age. This final is at Wembley, Geoff. Home advantage, how important was it to you? How important will it be to these boys?
It may, you could argue, have a slight advantage being at home, but I wouldn't think it's necessarily all important for the team to win. The team has to be the team, even if they're playing in front of an away crowd or no crowd at all. So I firmly believe it's the quality of the team. It may have a home advantage, but we were just a damn good team then. And I always call that team, when I look at, we have the greatest players of any era, Banks, Charlton, Moore, Greaves. I mean, they would compete at any level for 150 years. And a great manager. And the rest of the team that he honed together over a period of 3 years, moving out people who didn't want to be part of it. He was finished up, and I've always used this expression, a bunch of very, very hard-nosed professional people and likeable, friendly people who we stayed with and saw each other every year, 20, 30 years after, with a couple of days with our wives, game of golf. So that team spirit and camaraderie was honed during that period of time.
The boy Hurst wasn't bad either, was he?
Oh, God, yeah.
He wasn't bad.
Who's he? Which one's he?
He wasn't bad, but your life's changed forever. Your life, Geoff, changed forever after 1966. If these lads win it with Gareth against the Italians, what would you say to them now? Will their lives change forever?
Yes, their lives will change. When you're successful in your sport, in your particular field, any field, do something very significant, it elevate you as individual and a team amongst the greats, because of the fact you've done something that nobody else has done in any walk of life. You understand how big it is when you're still getting people talking to you. And during this 50-minute walk I have in the park, I very rarely talk to anybody. I'm concentrating on doing the exercise. And I don't make eye contact, and the odd person says good morning. I think more out of politeness than actually showing any recognition. But I found the day after we got to the semis, I think almost everybody I passed would say, good morning, Geoff. Good morning, Geoff. I had a cyclist chasing me down the road, trying to catch up with me to ask me what I felt about the tournament so far. So that'll happen to them. They'll get that, and there's a million other stories. And they'll understand and realise how big it is when you win a major trophy in your own country.
We remember the Geoff Hurst approach at Wembley in 1966. What do you want to see from Harry Kane on Sunday?
Well, Harry Kane showing what we had in our time. Bobby Moore, great leader. He's a great leader on the pitch, and it didn't concern me any of the sort of criticism or leaning on heavily of whether we should or shouldn't be scoring. Once a team starts to play and create the chances, he's going to get on the goal, as he did. So I wasn't remotely concerned about Harry or his attitude, or whether he wouldn't put the ball in the net. Didn't worry me in the slightest. I've been there, so I can talk more than anybody about. I've been there, and you rely on your teammates. You rely on great passes, great crosses. If he gets them, he'll get his fair share, as he's already proving.
You're not just Geoff Hurst. You are Sir Geoff Hurst. Whether England win it or whether England don't win it, should Gareth Southgate become Sir Gareth Southgate?
Yes, I do. I wouldn't say that if I didn't think that. I'd disagree with you and say absolutely not. But you look at the people in all sports, and football in particular, that have been knighted or given the Queen's honours and so on, you would put him up there with what he's achieved and the way he's achieved it, the way in the group of players that he's managed. So I think the major difference, there's so many differences then and now, like this is another one. When you were given a knighthood in my era, I'm not sure, but you can check the facts. I think Tom Finney, one of our real greats going back before me, I think he was around 76 when he was knighted, and he was one of our greatest players. You could debate and discuss the honour system till we're all blue in the face, but I firmly believe that what he's achieved so far, and the way he's achieved it, and the way he acts and behaves, and his humility within his sport, in this major time during this pandemic, he's definitely one I would say absolutely certainly should receive a knighthood. And if he's going to get it, he'll probably get it now than wait another 55 years, as we did in Tom Finney's time.
Let's say they win it, England win it, as you boys did in '66. How proud will you feel, Sir Geoff, when that trophy is lifted aloft?
I'll be absolutely just delighted as everybody else in this country. And luckily I'm going to be part of the 60-odd thousand crowd. So I'm just thrilled to bits. I was as nervous watching, you're more nervous watching the game than playing it, as everybody has said. Watching an England team doing it is far, I can't recall the kind of nerves I was experiencing in '66. So I'll be absolutely thrilled to bits. It'd be great for the team, the players, their families, the manager, and the country. It'd be fantastic for the country. Again, during this particular horrific time that the world and ourselves as a country has experienced.
It's a special game, and Simon and I needed a special guest. Sir Geoff, thank you so much for being with us.
Pleasure to be here and talk about it.
Hat-trick hero from 1966, the one and the only Sir Geoff Hurst. Of course, a West Ham legend. Trevor, you've often said to me, you have massive affection for West Ham. What do you think of that man, now 79 years of age?
Wow. I mean, he stands so well. You know, his posture, the way that he speaks, he's still got it all together. And if you think a lot of that squad are no longer with us, how well he's doing. But as a player, brilliant for West Ham, 400 games under his belt. He wasn't actually meant to play in the World Cup. He was probably second fiddle to Jimmy Greaves, who got an injury in the group games. And again, you need that little bit of luck. I think it's in the stars. I think the way that the squad's panned out, and I know we've only got one West Ham player in Declan Rice, but I think the way that the squad's panned out and Gareth's made his decisions, I just feel there's something in the air. We've got that little bit of luck, and hopefully we'll get over the line.
I mean, 55 years ago, Simon, it was a special time. He is a special man, but has the game lost much since then? What has it lost, do you think? What's different about it? That's significantly different about it?
Strange way to frame it. I'm not sure what's been lost or what's been gained. I mean, everything changes, everything evolves. It doesn't have to be revolution, it can be evolution. Of course, what has changed is it's become a very different game economically and the recognisability of players. And I've had the privilege over the years to have met a lot of the World Cup winners. I spent some time with Alan Ball, and I know his son Jimmy quite well. I spent some time with Nobby Stiles, and I've met Geoff before. And when you look back over the history of time, people stand out amongst it. Kenneth Wolstenholme's commentary will never be forgotten because of the moments in time. And Geoff Hurst scoring a hat-trick in a World Cup final at Wembley when he was almost second string to Jimmy Greaves, as Trevor has alluded to, and stepped in and took his position, stands up in the test of time. And he sits there and he talks about modern football, as he did with us this afternoon, talks about his relationship with the game now, and talks about his anxiety and ambitions for the England team and how nervous he was about their semi-final. And all of that is fascinating stuff from somebody that's deeply embodied in the psyche of anybody that's ever supported England's football team.
55 years on, though, Trevor. I mean, how important is it that the boys of today go out onto that Wembley turf against Italy and do what Sir Geoff and the rest did back in '66?
I think it's huge. I think it's huge for the nation. I think what we've been through in the last 18 months, you know, it's affected everyone in the country. I think the players respect that and understand that. And Kyle Walker came out with a few comments recently in a press interview he did. And he was saying, like, you know, this team spirit's great and we all want to do it for each other. But also because of the support that they feel that they're getting from the nation, that's added responsibility. So they want to do it for the nation as well. I mean, that brings its own pressures because, you know, there's going to be, 65,000 in there. The atmosphere on Wednesday night for the semi-final was incredible. They'll expect the same again. There's going to be butterflies in the stomach. There's going to be nerves. Focus on the game. Don't play the occasion. And if they can do that, I really do believe that we've got the players to beat this Italian side.
Trevor Sinclair, we shall see what happens. Incidentally, this is just for you. Manchester City manager. You love your Manchester City. Pep Guardiola is back in the headlines today with his comments on player prices. Now, is Pep being disingenuous here with his the prices being quoted are impossible comments? Or is Manchester City being financially responsible? What's your take on this? When you look at it, were you surprised at what you heard, Simon, from Pep Guardiola when he comes away with this summer, at the prices quoted, we're not going to be buying any strikers. It's impossible. We cannot afford it. We cannot afford it. This is the billionaire club, Manchester City.
Well, the club is not a billionaire club. Their owners are. And if you're going to buy a player, you don't want to advertise to the club that's selling him that you'll pay whatever they're prepared to ask, do you? So he's going to downplay it from that point of view. Although saying that, you don't expect a manager to toe the line and have any regard for what the club can and can't afford.
Unless he respects the owners.
Unless he respects the owners and the enormous paycheck he's getting for working for them. But in this instance, I'm pleased with it, Jim, because if we are really steering into a territory where the market is becoming slightly depressed, and by that I mean transfer fees are being reduced, I don't think it's real. I think if Harry Kane is going to go somewhere, someone's going to have to write an enormous cheque, and the likely suspects, or the usual suspects and likely candidates, will be his mob over at Man City. But you're positioning yourself. It wasn't so long ago we were linking, inextricably apparently, that Jack Grealish was being bought for 100 million quid. So make your mind up. Okay, which one is it? You'll pay £100 million for a midfielder, or you won't pay £100 million for probably, arguably, the world's most potent centre-forward.
But do you believe Pep when he says this? That's why I'm saying, is he being disingenuous? Do you honestly believe him?
No, I don't think so. I don't think he needs to bare his soul or the company's position on finances, Manchester City's company behind it, to the media.
Well, you called them the Frankenstein Club, not that long.
I do, because they're some of all their parts made up from other people's clubs, and some of the best parts and some of the worst parts, but most of the time the best parts. But a Frankenstein Club that was basically born out of nothing being organic being created and everything else being bought. Now, they've moved on a little bit from that because you've got younger players, and I said that a few years ago. They've bought younger players like Foden through their academy, so it's a difficult argument for me to make that barb. But it's still relevant because...
You said that weeks ago.
But I think what Simon's saying is because we were so far behind before this ownership came into place, they had to spend money to catch up to the big clubs that have been spending money over decades.
Is that
and
what
I think that's what Simon's saying. For me, that's how I interpret it.
I didn't mean that. I meant they were a ghastly club that was spending far too much money, and I didn't like it, and I thought it was breaking the ecosystem, and I thought there was an element of
they're breaking the
ugliness about
status
it.
quo of the teams that have been up there for a long time,
And that's an
they're breaking
alternative
into that.
argument. You know, they're compressing the time, and it's no different from Chelsea.
No, exactly.
I don't run a different argument for Chelsea.
But Blackburn spent a lot of money to win
And
the
Jack
title,
Walker
Manchester
and
United and all the
Blackburn.
rest of
And
it.
it has always been
every
that.
club does that.
And so it's thus.
Yeah.
But there was something about Manchester City with the nation-state ownership that causes me trouble, and the nature of football finances now are so precarious.
Well, I think
that
one
it
of the
worried me.
bonuses that we can look forward to, and hopefully this is going to come to fruition, is when he was managing in Spain at Barcelona.
Is this a fun fact, Trev?
This is a fact. Spain won a major tournament at international level.
Right.
When he was managing in Germany at Bayern Munich, Germany won a major international tournament. He is now managing in England at Manchester City. You know what?
So it could be third time unlucky then, couldn't it?
I hope not.
Normally it's third time unlucky.
That is something that you do that he and I don't. That's prep. Well done with that. Struan, let's hear from Struan, who's a member of the squad on the show today. He's a Manchester City fan. Struan, where do you stand on this? Do you honestly believe that Pep is telling the truth when he says, no, we're not going to be buying a striker?
I think it's difficult to tell. I think I've got to agree with Simon in a way. Is it disingenuous? You don't want to spend £100 million on a striker, but we're willing to spend £100 million on a midfielder. I think we've got fantastic midfield options at the moment. You look at Kevin De Bruyne, Phil Foden, Sterling, Mahrez, Torres. These are all guys that could potentially play in that false nine role. And then you look at what we've got in our academy. We've got young Liam Delap, he's 18 years old. We've got Lucas Nemecha, 22 years old. He's just scored 12 goals for the Germany under-21s team. I think we've got potential to keep it in the squad. I don't want to see us spend £100 million on a midfielder when we've got those options there already.
Struan,
if you're going to spend £100 million, please buy a striker.
Struan, could there possibly be
some
outgoings first to enable Jack Grealish to come in?
Yeah.
Would you be partial to that?
Yeah, well, I had Bernardo Silva down on the list. I think he's one of the guys that's been quite outspoken in the last couple of months about leaving the squad. I think that could potentially free up some space. Looking at where we are as well, potentially Gabby Jesus. Yeah, he's a great industrious player for us, but I'm not quite sure he can deliver for us on that big stage. So that could be another guy that we could potentially, he may have to miss out. But if we can get rid of him for one of those big name players to come in, then I don't see why not. But my main point is I don't want to say that we can't afford a £100 million striker, but then spend £100 million on a midfielder when we've got 5 or 6 players who are of a similar ilk to what Grealish.
Okay, I understand what he's saying there. And actually, from when it first was brought to us that Harry Kane could go to Manchester City for £100 million, I was of the thought that we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't spend £100 million. Because if you look at the records in the Premier League, all the records for the top transfers are nothing to do with us. Listen, we bought a lot of players for 60 million, like you're going to say, Simon. But we have kept it. We've never broke a British record. And I feel we'll stick to that principle and that philosophy. But I do feel that if they could get rid of a couple of players or do a little bit of a swap deal, they may go in for Jack Grealish.
Were you tongue-in-cheek when you called them a ghastly club?
At the time that I said it and meant it, no. But as time has gone on, I've gone furthermore into the admiration side of things because whatever you do or don't like, and I don't like some of the things they've done, and I believe that they were very lucky to get away with the accusations that were made against them and being cleared by the Court of Arbitration of Sport.
Factual.
And they may well get sanctioned by the Premier League. But by the same token, I also admire, you cannot be disingenuous like Pep is being about this transfer and suggest you don't admire their brand of football.
Or he's playing his poker face.
or being disingenuous
Yeah.
by playing poker face.
We got there in the end. A month ago, 24 nations set out on the path to this weekend's final. Only 2 teams now remain, England and Italy. Now, we know it's not going to be easy for whoever wins it. Italy have 33 games unbeaten heading into this final. So when you look at that, Trevor, how concerned should you be as a former England man, as a big football fan, a big England fan? When you look at that stat, you think, what are we going up against here?
Yeah, no, they've been outstanding since Roberto Mancini took over the Italy team. I think they've grown in confidence. I think they've grown from being very tight at the back. You look at 2 of the main players, and Bonucci and Chiellini. Brilliant old-time players, 34 and 36. You know, they're old boys, they're experienced, they've got a bit of pride. They're old-school defenders that love keeping the ball out the back of the net. I think, you know, you look throughout the side, they're mature. I think they're very established players, and they've got a little bit of pizzazz going forward. But for me, you know, I think it's a huge blow for them, Spinazzola being out the team. I think he's been one of the players of the tournament until he ruptured his Achilles. That's a massive blow for them. And I just feel we've got the players to hurt them. Going forward, Raheem Sterling's been outstanding. For me, player of the tournament. I know Simon and I have disagreed about whether he's world class or not, but really he's emphasised to me, not just to me, but to the nation and to the world, that he is world class. His performances have been outstanding. I think the young boy Saka's gone in there, 18-year-old. You know, credit to all the coaches and his parents and everything that have been part of his development, because what he's doing now is incredible. And Harry Kane, you know, I doubted him, but he has come to the fore. He's scored 4 goals now, and you wouldn't bet against him scoring more in the tournament.
For Trevor's benefit, I mean, Raheem Sterling, if he didn't, in your eyes, go into this tournament world class, it must be not far off it now.
No, he's international class. He's not world class. I mean, world class is operating on a completely different level that players aren't capable of operating at. Many players are capable of operating at the level that Raheem Sterling's at. There are not many players that are operating at a level where it takes you beyond the pale of a decent international footballer. I think there's a lot to be said about the argument that he comes under criticism for his performances. There was a lot to be said about the debate that put him into the side. He's proven those arguments wrong.
Yeah.
But to now superimpose that over the narrative that just because he's had a decent tournament...
Decent?
Yeah,
Simon,
decent tournament.
He's been the game changer for England.
He's had a decent tournament.
He's been involved in 22 goals in 22 games.
Fantastic.
That's consistency at world level.
We've had that discussion.
Decent?
Yeah, very decent tournaments. And he's had a very decent tournament. When you want to superimpose these superlatives across them and start making them into the world-class players because they have a decent tournament or a very good tournament for the sake of splitting hairs, then I start to get into the world of saying I don't think he's world-class. And everything is subjective, but he's a very good player and he's proven a lot of people wrong, and there were malicious comments about him. And, you know, go back to 2016 where people were doing a GoFundMe page to get Raheem Sterling home on a plane away from the 2016 tournament.
Oh, yeah.
And that's poor form.
Yeah.
But he's done very well, and the best way to answer critics is to do what he's doing. Play well.
You've been Mr. Predictor throughout the Euros. I have to say, he's been on the button with some of his predictions. On this one, you've gone England and you stick with England.
Yeah, listen, I think this is a very difficult game for both sides. I think England are an incredibly difficult side to play against. They're a difficult side in many ways for many different reasons. But I think this one gets carried across the line, not because we're the better side, because I don't think we are. I think this one gets carried across the line because of the sheer fanaticism and frenzied atmosphere that will be created by the fans. And I think this group of players have the ability to respond to that, not to shrink from it. And I watched Southgate in that when they were talking to the players during the break on the last 15 minutes of the game in the semi-finals against the Denmark team, and he just was the embodiment of calmness, imparting a message. And I thought to myself, you know, I've been quite critical of you over the past and quite facetious about some of the things that you've done, and rightly so at times.
He's won you over.
And rightly so, because
he's won you over, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. He has in this format because it's undeniable. And the more I see from him stylistically, he is the right man at the right time in the right space with the right face. And so he's doing the job.
I'm just looking over your shoulder and every member of the squad have fainted because he's won you over.
Yeah.
Say that again, he's won you over.
In this current incarnation, it's undeniable that you cannot sit there and say he's done anything wrong.
He's a class act. I used to sit next to him on the team bus to and from training in 2002, and he's the most polite, well-mannered. He wants to know about the game. He wants to learn. He's a people's person. He can get on with anyone. And for me, it's not a surprise that every one of them players was listening in intently, and he was nice and calm. And I just thought, that is a reflection of him, who he is. He's not going to panic and start ranting and raving. He is a modern coach. He's not, I don't want to disrespect any of the coaches, but back in the day, there'd be teapots going, there'd be this, because they didn't know how to help you.
Yeah.
And if he loses, he's useless.
He is so informed.
And if he loses, you see, you were doing so well up until that point. Let's go to the squad, because Tom, I want to hear from you, my friend. You played semi-professional, you're a coach at semi-professional level and a manager, and you played in the lower leagues as well. You know your football inside out, mate. You're a Leeds fan. What about Southgate? What do you think? And also, what about Sunday? England or Italy?
Well, first of all, Southgate's done, obviously, as everybody said, a fantastic job. Something to be proud of. But if we're moving on to the game, I just strongly feel the Italians, the midfield three, I think that's where the game will be won and lost. You look at the three, you look at Verratti, Jorginho, Barella, they're all more than capable, probably the world's best at dictating a game with the ball. I don't feel we have that in our midfield three. I know we play 4-2-3-1, but that three, I think if they get hold of the game, they dictate with the ball, I think we will struggle. That's just my personal point, and I think that will be a massive factor on Sunday.
I disagree with that. I think you look at the Spain game, and they were dictated too. I don't think they could get hold of the ball. I don't think they had the quality to compete with the Spanish team, who their engine really did work. And Busquets run the show with the young boy, Pedri, 18-year-old Barcelona player. I feel they looked out on their feet a lot of the time. A lot of the players looked really tired. They've not rotated like England, which, again, I think is going to go in our favour because we've got players to come off the bench and hurt them. I actually think you look at that midfield area, and we know Jorginho's just won the Champions League with Chelsea. He's a fantastic player, scored the winning penalty for Italy to get him into the final. I look at that area and I feel that could be a real area that we could really impose ourselves on them.
OK, Tom, thanks to you. What about Steffi? Any doubts in your mind, Steffi?
A little bit. I think Italy will be really, really difficult to break down. Very, very good on the counter-attacking. So, yeah, it could go either way. I don't think it'll be a very pretty game. But I think in the end we'll have the quality to just see us through.
OK, quality name here. Avion. What do you think, Avion?
Yeah, I'm very confident. I think what's given me more confidence is that compared to when we played in the World Cup and the Nations League, although it was a humbling experience, I think we've got a good squad of players that have now gone and played on a big stage. They've gone and played against, in some cup finals, semi-finals in the Champions League, some important games in the Premier League as well. And I think that's just breeded more maturity into the team. And you can see that now in the tournament. Our game management has been so much more better. I think against Denmark, going one goal down, and then we went 2-1 up. How we saw that game out has been so much more different to how we've seen it happen before. So I think it's just given us good confidence going into the final now.
It's a good shout that you say there, Avion, as well, because I remember when we played against Brazil and they went 2-1 up against us, and with 10 men, they kept the ball, and it was so frustrating. And watching England the other night against Denmark, 2-1 up, what was it, 50-odd passes, they kept the ball.
Yes, yeah,
and just game management was untrue.
Yeah.
Obviously, that takes a lot of skill. It takes a lot of tactical understanding of where you need to be and where the ball's going to come and little patterns of play.
And a knackered Danish team.
And understanding passages of play. We don't want to go forward. We want to pretend that we want to go forward to then come out. When they get us locked in, we're out and we keep the ball for even longer. Well, I thought it was excellent. I agree with you there.
This is a moment of truth, guys, for every member of the squad. A show of hands. Let's see those who think Italy will win. Oh, Tom, bottom right. You're a brave boy. The other 8 of you, England? There you go. There you go. All right. Okay. England gets the nod. We shall see. All will be revealed on Sunday. Trevor, give me a scoreline.
2-0 England. I think it'll be a second half goal. Mid through the second half, we'll score the first, and they'll be chasing it. We'll find a little hole and we'll go and score the second and finish the game off.
Conspiracy theorist?
No, I'm not going to give you a score, but I think England will win.
Okay, England will win. England. We shall see. That's it from Simon and myself, White and Jordan on the box. And it goes without saying, huge thanks to Sir Geoff Hurst and all of our squad today as well. And thanks to our wingman, Trevor Sinclair. And of course, it is good luck to every member of that England squad and England side who starts the match against Italy. And of course, a country expects the trophy. Incidentally, wherever you're watching the final, it's going to be a night to remember. So enjoy it. From us, bye-bye.